we are going to start by discussing the ear and the parts of the ear and how hearing and sound works with the ear. So the ear has three parts. There is the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The outer ear consists of the pinna, that's this part, and the ear canal. And then the middle ear consists of the eardrum, and then the three smallest bones in the human body. And then there's the inner ear, and then that consists of the cochlea and then the auditory nerve. So the pinna, that's the visible part of our outer ear, and it collects sound waves and funnels then those sound waves into the ear canal. And then the ear canal is a tube through which sound travels into the eardrum. So then we're at the eardrum, and this is also called the tympanic membrane, and it's a thin membrane that vibrates when sound reaches it, then passing those vibrations to the three smallest bones in our body, and those are collectively known as ossicles, those three bones. And in Latin, actually, these bones were given the name the hammer, anvil, and stirrup because of their distinct shapes. But their real names are the malleus, incus, and stapes. So the stirrup is the very smallest bone in the human body. And so then when those three bones vibrate, then those vibrations then are passed to the cochlea. So then the cochlea is a snail or spiral-shaped, fluid-filled inner ear structure. And something that I learned that I thought was interesting is that in a 3D model, or what it actually looks like, the cochlea actually looks like a soft serve ice cream on top of an ice cream cone. So it has like a 3D dimension to it. When you look just at a 2D model, it looks like a spiral or like a snail, but it actually has that 3D dimension to it, which I thought was kind of interesting, unique. But the cochlea is lined with cilia, and cilia they're nerve cells, and they look like tiny hairs. And then if the cochlea were to be unrolled, it would look like a piano keyboard with the highest frequency sounds at the base, and then the lowest frequency sounds at the apex. So when the sound vibrations are passed then to the cochlea, the cilia, which are those tiny hairs, they move, and then they cause a nerve impulse to form then from the moving. And then the nerves carry electrochemical signals from the cochlea to the brain through the auditory nerve. And then it is then that we hear sound. So it's quite the process. There's many different layers before we actually hear sound. So next, we're going to look at an audiogram. So now this is your child's audiogram, and an audiogram is a chart in which the audiologist records the results of the hearing test. The left side of the chart measures the loudness in decibels, and then the top is the quietest sound, and the bottom is the loudest sounds. So the top of the chart from left to right measure the frequency of the sounds in hertz, from the lowest frequency to the highest frequency. This is kind of like a piano keyboard. So with an audiogram, the information below the marks, so I'm talking about here, these are the marks on your child's audiogram. So the information below the marks made by the audiologist is the softest sound a child can hear at key frequencies, and the information above the marks are the sounds that the child cannot hear. So right here we have the X's represent the left ear, and the O's, or the circles, represent the right ear. So we see that your child's left ear has a profound loss, and then his right ear, it's more of a mild to moderate loss. So it's helpful to know the audiogram when then looking at the familiar sounds audiogram. The familiar sounds audiogram is helpful for me when I'm working with children. It has pictures of environmental sounds and some sounds that speech mapped onto it. So the shaded area right here, that's called the speech banana, which represents the range of conversational speech, and it can be beneficial. And I did this to transfer your child's information onto a familiar sounds audiogram because it really shows you, it helps you understand what they can hear and what they cannot hear. So as we look at, I transferred your child's information, and we can see that your child would not be able to hear the P sound, so P or H or J, H or G, would not be able to hear the Ch or Sh, K, F, or Th sounds. So that's what he is not able to hear when he's unaided. So with his hearing aids though, there is definitely a difference, and he's able to hear some of those sounds. And then as you can see, the left ear, without hearing aids, he's really only able to hear some of those environmental sounds, like a jackhammer. He might be able to detect sound from like at a concert, like with a band, and then hear like an airplane if it's very, very close. But yes, it's very interesting and can be very beneficial to then look at those sounds that he's unable to hear without his hearing aids. I'm sure because of the profound loss in your child's left ear, he really relies on that right ear to hear a lot of those sounds that are unable to be heard within his left ear. Even with his hearing aids, I think that right ear is extremely helpful for him. So now we're going to take a look at something called the communication mode continuum. And a child with a hearing loss does not learn language incidentally and needs purposeful instruction to acquire information. So receptive language means the way a child receives information from a continuum of visual, such as American Sign Language, to listening with technology. So that would be this one right here, and we'll talk specifically about your child and where he would fall. But then we also have expressive language, which means the way a child shares information from a continuum of visual, such as American Sign Language, to talking. And you've kind of chosen both sign language with more of like an English word order with your child. He uses signed English. And you've also chosen listening and spoken language for your child. And it seems that it kind of depends on the situation with with what mode your child uses. For example, I would say receptively, he very much would be kind of right in the middle. He relies, in school, he relies on the interpreter at times, but he also is taking in the information receptively, auditorily. So he's listening as well as using that receptive communication of sign language. So then when we transition and look over at expressive communication, I would say with expressive communication, he's mostly oral, if not fully oral. He doesn't, very rarely will sign to me. And if he does sign to me, it's just like it's very short. He really relies on spoken language when it comes to his expressive communication. So in order for your child to be successful, he really needs to be wearing his listening technology in all waking hours of his day. And I can help you with strategies to teach your child to listen and use spoken language successfully. So that's all I have for you. Thank you very much.